Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Focus Podcast. My name is Eli.
My name is Misael.
Thank you for joining us today.
This afternoon, we are discussing with a very special guest, exploring the combination between military service, public service, and faith.
Um, Today, we have joining us Edwin Aranda. He is a U.S. Army veteran, formerly worked in the Arizona Department of Health Services as a program manager, and currently works at the National Institute of Health as a program analyst. Edwin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you for joining us, Edwin. You've already seen some of the questions, so you're a little prepared. We did share with him this time the questions beforehand.
That'd be
Normally,
nice.
we don't do it, but yeah, we were nice with him. Starting off, though, to see where it is that you started in life, where did you grow up and what was your religious background growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up here. I was born and raised here in Arizona, but in all different parts of Arizona. So for the majority of my childhood, I lived in Mesa. And then during the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, we moved over to East Mesa and then ended up, once we got back on our feet, we ended up in Queen Creek, Arizona, Santan Valley to be precise. And then after a few years in Texas, I moved back here in Arizona and we're in Phoenix now.
Awesome. Awesome. So, okay, beautiful.
What was your religious background there? Did you always grow up in the church?
I would say, when I was around 8 years old, my parents found God, found the Lord and Savior. And during that time, I remember going to church almost every day up until my teen years. So I wouldn't say I grew up in the church, but for the large majority of my childhood, I was in the church.
Okay. And at what age did you get baptized?
I got baptized at the age of 22.
22.
No, I'm sorry. Cancel that. I got baptized at the age of 25.
25.
Yes.
How old are you right now?
I'm 28.
3 years ago.
Yes.
Pretty recent.
Yes.
Okay.
I was thinking about that as I was preparing the questions.
Yeah.
As they came to my mind, because I was going to ask how long you've been in the walk, but then I remember that it was pretty recent
Yes.
when you got baptized.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. It's, again, like I said, since my childhood, my parents were a part of a Christian denomination that was rather strict.
It was an apostolic?
No, it was not apostolic. And so when I already had the experiences in my childhood of, family gatherings, birthday parties, and Christmases and other different holidays, once we joined this Christian denomination, that all went away. And so from my early childhood, a resentment started happening in my life against Christianity. And so, while I was in school and all that, I was very scientific oriented. And I started to question a lot of the teachings that were being brought up. And I would say, that accompanied with other areas of my life, I started to push away or get away from the Christian church. But recently, once we came back to Phoenix, we found this church and it felt right at home. I started feeling a connection with the Lord. I started wanting to pursue my relationship with Him. And eventually, I decided to get baptized in the name of Jesus Christ.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So then, would you say, so then it was after high school that you decided to go to the military? And is that kind of what happened?
No, so the military was actually rather spontaneous, a spontaneous decision.
Okay.
I went to college at Northern Arizona University for a year, and I studied electrical engineering. But I chose that path because I grew up in a low-income household, and I would always Google search bachelor's degree that pay the most when
I think
after
everyone's done
graduating.
that at one point.
And so, yeah, and so electrical engineering was always at the top of the list. And I always had, or I always felt a responsibility to provide for my family, and to get them out of the rut that they were in. And so I decided to pursue that career, and I did quite well for the first year, but none of the classes really, none of the classes really interested me. So I started thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And so I decided to step away from college, and there was a summer where I worked with my dad in construction, and he was in concrete. So if you can imagine the Arizona heat, yeah, if you can imagine the Arizona heat, that told me right away, I said, I have to go to college. This isn't for me. And so I didn't want to pay for college either because we didn't have money. And so I knew that the Army had free college, and I decided to go into a recruiter's office and made the decision to join the military.
That's interesting. The reason I asked about, maybe after high school going to the military is that, you hear stories every now and then that being raised or maybe being brought into the church as a young child, maybe building up that resentment. Some people, sees that as an escape to leave that, but that wasn't necessarily the case.
That was not the case for me, no. My resentment was mostly focused, or there was a foundation of incredulity, I think that's a word, or I just had my reservations on the basis of the Christian faith. And you got to understand that, that particular denomination, I was not fond of many of the teachings. So for example, Darwin's theory of evolution.
Yeah.
It's being taught a lot here in school. And so, when I first learned about it, it says, the theory says that we have a common ancestor with monkeys. But then you go to church, and then church says, "Oh, well, we can." The theory is so wrong because we come from monkeys. And I would always think to myself, well, that premise is wrong. I firmly believe that as Christians, we need to have a foundation of truth to fight against those sorts of theories or thoughts. And so, because when someone like myself is there and hearing, and I hear, wait, you're wrong about that. What else are you wrong with? And that's sort of why I had a little bit of or I would push back towards those sorts of teachings. And so the military, the reason for me joining the military was nothing more other than, I'm not happy with where I am. The Army offers a lot of good benefits and a lot of skills and traits that could be instilled upon me by going there. So that's the main reason why I decided to join.
Two separate questions. Let's see if I remember the second one. The first one's on the top of my mind. Coming back to church, was there an amount of church hurt that you had to get over? Or do you think that in your case you weren't really church hurt? It was more challenging the beliefs of the Christian denomination that you were originally in, and then putting the right beliefs in place?
I think it was the latter. I think like I said, I'm very oriented to know why things happen or why things are the way they are. And so here in this church, our pastor has said a lot of times, we don't focus on religion. We don't focus on religion. And that spoke to me because he would say, we focus on the relationship with Jesus Christ. That's the main focus. And I think that previously, because of the teachings that I had heard, I felt unworthy. Your appearance is wrong, and the things that you are doing is wrong. You shouldn't even be here. I used to play for the church when I was younger, and I was not baptized, and they said, you shouldn't even be playing at the church. And so when I came over here, I just felt a sense of familiarity, a sense of belonging. And so that started to heal my belief system, and I started to be more open-minded. And after hearing a lot of a lot of the teachings that were going on in this church, I absolutely fell in love. I fell in love with the music, the ability to feel the presence of God in this place. And so I think that was the main factor for me to come back to the church and pursue my relationship with Jesus.
I don't remember the second question.
No, but that's really interesting. So then, how did your family kind of react when you just told them that you were going to join the military?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, if
Uh,
it sounds like they're pretty conservative, pretty,
yeah,
set in what they believed in.
you know, like I said, my family, my parents and I have a good relationship with them now. Don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
But during that time, there was a lot of tension, just because I started questioning the beliefs. I started to think for myself, and I also started to rebel. When I was a teenager, I started going to parties. I started hanging out with friends. I joined sports that took time away from the church, and to a point where I think at age 15 or 16, I decided not to play anymore. And that sort of created a tension between my father and I. And he was an incredibly hard worker. He's of the belief that you have to have a relationship with the Lord, and good things will come by. So I fully agree with him, but uh, that tension still occurred. There was a point in time where I can't even remember. I hadn't even received a hug from my dad for a couple of years. And so when I decided to tell them that I was going to join the military, uh, I walked into a recruiter's office one day, and in about a month, I was shipped out. So that's how fast it happened.
Yeah.
I told them, and I remember my parents sat us down for a completely different conversation, and that's when I told them. I said, you know what, I'm already planning on leaving, so you don't have to worry about me. You don't have to tell me anything that's going to happen. I think they were just discussing the rules of the house. And so I said, no, don't worry about me. I'm okay. And that's how they found out. They found out that I was going to join the military, and I told them, and they said, "What are you're gonna kill people? Are you gonna shoot? Are you gonna go into a different country and take it over?" It was all of that sort of misinformation
Yeah.
that the military is only involved in war. And that's not necessarily true. I think there's a statistic, and I'm not sure, but I think 95% of military jobs are non-combat. I was in a combat job, but it was particularly defense oriented.
Okay.
So that's a big difference. And I tried to tell them that, and I tried to let them know, look, I'm not going to be involved in a lot of hand-to-hand combat or immediate fire. I'm typically going to be safe. I researched the job and everything like that.
Yeah.
Can you build on that? 95% of jobs aren't combat.
Yeah, not 95% of, at least in the Army, because I was in the Army,
Okay.
95% of Army jobs are non-combat oriented. So that means that, for example, you can choose a dental assistant job in the military. You can choose a supply job in the military. You can choose a logistics job in the military. There's a large portion of military members that have never seen combat. They've been deployed,
Yeah.
but they usually stay in the base. They manage the day-to-day operations, and there's only a specific number of jobs that are exclusively designated for combat jobs, and that's, for example, infantry, 11 Bravo, tankers, all of those sorts of jobs that you have weaponry, and they train upon that.
5% is a pretty small number. Like, how many people do you estimate that is?
I'm sorry, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah.
But you don't quote me on that, but I do believe that the majority of military jobs are non-combat oriented.
So you already had the idea in your head, or did they kind of give you a reassurance that you wouldn't be in a combat position, or is it more like, or how does that really work? I mean, I've seen the recruiters come in and they tell us stuff, but like,
If
I
you
don't
want
know
to talk,
much of it's official.
my recruiter, he was great, but they don't really tell you the whole truth.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people watching or listening have gone to an actual recruiter's office, but it's not as easy as they make it sound, or as relaxed as they make it sound. So when I first inquired to them, I first wanted to join the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
And so I walked into the Air Force, and there was a guy right there. I remember it. He was in a regular shirt and Air Force shorts. And not to talk bad about the Air Force, but I walked in and I asked him, hey, I'm interested in joining the Air Force. I just wanted to get some information. And he literally just gave me a piece of paper. Hey, fill this out and give me your 5 best jobs and we'll choose a job for you. And then
Wow.
he said, see you later. So it was almost like I was an inconvenience to him.
Yeah.
It sounded like he was going to go play golf or something like that. I don't know. But
Kind of game.
I looked into it, and the idea that I had to make a list and then they would prioritize my top pick, but if it wasn't there, they'll switch me down to the second one or third. It was sort of too unstable, or it wasn't. I didn't get a sense of security of what I wanted to do, and so I literally walked out, still with the Air Force paper in my hand, and I went into the Army recruiter's office and I said, hey, I'm thinking about joining the Army. What do you guys have to offer? And they said, hey, you have a whole bunch of jobs. I took a test. It's called the ASVAB, and I scored high enough to where all of the jobs were available to me. And they said, you can pick any job you want, but there are certain jobs that are high need for the Army, so we're offering bonuses. And so I said, give me that list. And
Working with.
I chose a couple. I looked into them, and there was one that really interested me because it had a really cool recruiting video. It said, you're going to be here, you're going to be making decisions, pressing a button, and it shoots missiles. And I was like, I want to do that. And it came with a bonus. So I decided to join. I decided to sign up for that job. Yeah.
That's the Patriot Missile System Operator.
Yes.
And maintainer.
Yeah. So it's a Patriot Missile System Operator and Maintainer. And for everybody who's watching, I just want to reiterate the fact that the Patriot Missile System is air defense artillery. So it has a high percentage of no collateral damage.
Okay.
So it's strictly defense, which means that we shoot missiles at missiles that are coming to hurt us.
Okay.
And if anything, we shoot enemy airplanes if we're in that situation. But I wanted to search up a job that was interesting to me, but also I did not want to go into a job where either my life was at risk or I was put in a place where I had to take a life.
Mm-hmm.
Only in this extreme situation where I really needed to do it, I would. But I think that that's any job in the military,
So what was that? Sorry, go ahead. So what was that kind of? So then, okay, you break it to your parents, and then you said literally a month afterwards,
Yeah.
you get shipped out. So then I know there's basic training, but then you have to do a separate training for that kind of
Yeah,
protection?
it's called AIT. It's called Advanced Individual Training.
Yeah.
And so after basic training, basic training was terrible.
Yeah.
At least for me. I went to Fort Jackson, and people call it Relaxing Jackson. At least in my experience, it was not relaxing at all. Every person that signs up, you're a private at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go through what I would describe it as orientation. They take off your clothes and give you military clothes up to your underwear. So you don't have anything civilian. And then they put you in line for, I think, 4 days. I was in line. I had very little sleep, and we were in line for most of the day and just walking through everything to gather our supplies, to gather our equipment as we were first enlisted, and you shave your head. So when I first joined, that was my experience, and it was a shock to me. You know, the military does a great job in breaking you down to bring you back up, to mold you into the soldier identity that they want, because you are no longer. One thing that my drill sergeant said is, you know, welcome. You are no longer civilians. You are property of the United States of America, and so you are seen, in general, you are seen as a unit. You work as a unit. You're no longer an individual. You don't stand out. Standing out is incredibly frowned upon in the military. So after that, I was instilled those values for 10 weeks, and then I shipped out to my advanced individual training where I get to learn my particular job. And that was 6 months for me. So it's one of the longest jobs that have advanced individual training. Certain jobs have 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and then you ship out to your actual unit. But for me, it was 6 months. And that was another experience where I was, you know, I suffered from boredom. I suffered from, people telling me what to do all the time, because again, you are no longer an individual. You are told where to be, you are told what to wear, you are told how to stand, and when to eat and when to sleep. So during those 6 months, I hardly had any time to myself or anything like that. But and then there's people who just don't make it. The problem is that if you don't make the job that you want, they ship you out to somewhere else where the Army needs you to see if you make that job. So I did not want that to happen, and thankfully everything aligned to where I was first in my class, and I was able to get promoted in that in basic training and advanced individual training. I got one promotion, and I shipped out to my unit in Texas.
So your base was in Texas, but your training was where?
My training was in Oklahoma. Basic training was in Fort Jackson in North Carolina. So I was in North Carolina. Me, who I had only been to Arizona. I first shipped out to North Carolina and experienced the weather there, which is very cold. I did basic training in the winter. And then I moved to Oklahoma, which is incredibly humid. And so I did 6 months there, and then I moved over to Texas, it has similar weather to the United States, but it's still, to Arizona, but it's still very, well, Texas, it's its own country. I'm just kidding. In Texas, it's humid and all that. So I had all these experiences. I met a lot of great people, and I saw a lot of different areas of the United States in that short time span.
You know what I was thinking as I drove here? Completely unrelated. But who's the first person to come to Arizona, stand in the summer in crazy heat, and say, this is where I want to live, especially in farming conditions?
No, yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I was actually talking to somebody, and they brought up an article, a news article, where it said, in Arizona, we're so dependent on air conditioning that if, for example, the electricity were to go out or anything like that, it's considered an emergency. And so in Arizona, we weren't supposed to actually start laying roots here. Because of air conditioning and new technology advances, we expanded more. There's no water here. The Colorado River expands over there, and we get a little bit of that. But in reality, Arizona was never supposed to be habitable to us, just because of the tough weather conditions.
Well, even though Texas is pretty hot too, though.
Right, so that's why it came to my mind. Would you move back to Texas?
Oh, I really enjoyed Texas. Not only
But
because
the barbecue's amazing.
The brisket, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Texas is a great state. Its cost of living is one of the lowest. And I think that if I had the opportunity, I would go to Texas. But because we have family here, it would be such a tough decision to make.
Of course. And kind of not going a little bit backwards, back to, the basic training, and how you kind of talked about how the military is really good at breaking you down, but then building you back up, and kind of making you kind of like you said, you're not a civilian, but now you're property of the United States,
Right.
United States military. So then there's that military culture, right? It's all about cohesion. It's all about discipline and kind of like the core values. And I kind of wrote some down here, like loyalty, duty, respect, selfless honor, integrity, courage, all that kind of
Yes.
core values of the military.
Yeah.
How you talked a little bit, but how difficult was it to really embrace that kind of military culture?
For me, it wasn't that difficult.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the feeling of being part of the team and feeling like I was doing something greater than myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the 7 Army values that you just mentioned, I could really relate to that because when I guess you could say I was an individual when I was in high school throughout my entire time prior to the military. I really didn't feel like I belonged to any sort of friend group.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a lot of people, I knew them and all of that. I never had a problem with meeting someone and saying, I don't like you. I was really open to making friends and all of that, and I was really good at it. But I never felt like I belonged with a certain group of people. I played sports, so I played soccer, but I didn't hang out with the soccer guys. I was actually in theater, and I didn't hang out with the theater
You were in
kids.
theater?
Yeah, I won awards for theater. I'm a great actor. I'm just kidding.
Really? What kind of plays did you do?
Well, we used to do, one year we did Disney plays. So I was in Entangled.
Footage.
I forgot, but I was the character with the big nose. So I was like, oh, that's me. Entangled. I can't
Oh,
remember.
Entangled?
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed acting, and I had a good time. But again, like I said, I didn't really hang out with them at lunch. I hung out with maybe 2 people, 3 people, and that tended to change throughout my high school
What's
career.
the personality of those friend groups, or your
What do you mean personality? Like,
what were you guys like? Like,
well,
what sort of people did you hang out with?
well, they were all kinds of people. In terms of demographics, I hung out with Latinos, I hung out with white people, I hung out with African Americans. I never had a problem with those people. With anybody who I hung out with, I always enjoyed their company and all that. But when I joined the military, I realized that you can't solely rely on yourself. You can't do anything that's meaningful without the help of somebody else, because somebody else might bring knowledge that you don't know. Somebody else might bring techniques or skills that you might not hold. So the military really taught me that. And I'll give you an example. When I was going through basic training, one of the first instances, we were being taught how to, there was an obstacle course, and we had to rappel from a huge wooden wall. And we were given ropes, and we were given rocks and other sorts of things. And we were all in a group, and I just didn't know how to tie knots. But then I had some guy from the South who grew up in a farm, and he was like, "Yeah, give me that. I got it." And I started to appreciate the value that other people brought. And I guess to your point, how were we like? We were very individualistic. At least for me, I didn't feel like I needed anybody. I always had good grades. Like I said, I always met people, but I never felt like I needed anything from them. The military is different.
Yeah.
You need to talk to your team members. When you're moving, clearing a house or clearing, let's say a big forest, you need to know what motions or what people are talking. Sometimes use hand signals and things like that, and what other people are also thinking to anticipate what your team member might do. So it's that sort of connection that we built in the military.
So then you felt like you were able to kind of, I guess, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, like find your people, but find like your actual like friends within the military.
Yeah. I still talk to a couple of people that I met in the military, and I got out in 2020.
Okay.
And that's something for me, because I don't talk to any of my high school friends. I don't talk to anybody that I've known since childhood. But in the military, I've met people that, needless to say, if they needed help, I would, hop on a plane wherever they
Yeah.
were, and I'd go and see what's going on. And I think that that's something good that came out of the military.
This was really personal.
Sure.
Then, what do your close relationships look like then? Who are your closest ties to? Like just your family? If you don't really have many friends outside of like from your early childhood?
Yeah. So right now, I'm at the point of my life where I I have a priority to raise my kids and be with people that really, really mean a lot to me, you know, um, and that's mostly family. Uh, I I've met people. My wife is actually more into meeting new people and bringing them over. So I meet her friends' husbands. But I typically, a Saturday looks like, waking up, maybe going to breakfast with the kids, and then in the evening there's a birthday party to go to. And I don't know a lot of, if I met somebody who's single or somebody who doesn't have kids, I don't know a lot of people who understand where I am in my point in life, where it's like I want to raise my kids. I want to spend as much time with them because they grow up in a blink of an eye. My kid's 5 right now. I felt like I was holding him, just yesterday. And so I prioritize family, and I have a couple friends that I talk to. Sometimes we hang out, but it's very rare.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward in life. How old are you again? 26?
28.
28. Looking forward,
Looking young.
50 years. So 76? Yeah.
Yeah.
76, around the age of 76, 80. Do you see yourself still holding on to the friends that you have right now, or maybe parting ways the same way that you have with your childhood friends?
No, I think, and it goes back to the military. Um, I might be telling you my experience right now,
Yeah.
but, with all due respect, you guys haven't lived it. You guys haven't gone through basic training and
Yeah.
experienced uh, Nick at Night, which is pretty much a night raid that we do. It's a training raid, and there's things that we experienced when I was deployed, where we really came together, because being deployed in the desert is incredibly tough. And when you're deployed for a year away from family and you only have them to be there, and you see them sometimes 24-hour shifts, and they get on your last nerve, but ultimately, you have to push the mission forward and you become stronger. And it sort of set me up for being patient, being open to other people's cultures, being mindful of them as well. And also, because we shared that experience, I don't think I could relate as much with other people than those people that experience them with. So to your point, at 76, 80 years old, I would be incredibly privileged to still talk to my friends that I met in the military. I would not want to go away. Sometimes we just share memes. That's our communication. We share memes. Hey, look,
Real.
check this out. We laugh. He puts the laughing emoji. And sometimes we help each other out. I just recently did a recommendation interview for someone who was looking for a job, or applying for a job. And so those are things that we do. And it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Outside of the military, though, you
Mhm.
think you would need some sort of experience like that or like really bond with someone in order to have their friendship 20 years from now?
no, no, not at all. I've met plenty of people that I would love to spend time with. Eli, you're one of them. I'm just kidding.
Just kidding. Hey, you made us smile.
respect.
You made us smile.
Yes,
You made us
I made you
smile.
So yeah, I think that it's just the stage of life of where I'm at. I do think that relationships are incredibly important. This podcast is about your jobs and how it relates to faith. Well, the United States has a particular emphasis in networking in order to get a job. It's a lot easier to get a job when someone is already in the organization than you just applying. Trust me, I know. When I was going for looking for as many jobs as possible, I had I probably applied to like 200 jobs within a 7-month span, and I only got 2 phone calls. And one of them was the job that I decided to go with at the National Institutes of Health. But it's while I was going to college, one of the career coaches emphasized the idea of talking to your classmates, getting to know them, and maintaining that line of communication, because you never know who might go where and if you might need their assistance in something. So not only that, but I think I value conversations a lot. So I've met a lot of people who are incredibly interesting to me, and I would love to get to know them more. But again, I think I'm prioritizing my family right now.
So overall, you think your time in the military kind of changed you for the good, correct?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay.
I'd say, when I was going through the military, I remember one night, and it was when we just deployed, and we were setting up all of our equipment, and it took 3 days. So I hadn't slept for 72 hours. Did I do that right? 24, 48, 72 hours.
No energy drinks or nothing, just straight.
Oh no, there were energy
there-
drinks. There was a lot of energy drinks in that. So we were deployed, and I remember by the 3rd night, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was exhausted. And they had just called me on the radio, "Hey, this equipment is having issues. We need you to come look at it." And I just remember standing in the back, right at the door frame, and opening the door and just standing there towards literal sand. And I was in a shack, and it was the only shack that had some sort of AC. And I said, if anybody asks me whether they should join the military or not, I'm gonna say no. They should not. And I walked out. And I went and did my job. But the military did instill upon me, that grit, it's going to get better, some sort of sense of humor that not a lot of people understand. It might be dark humor. We always try in those conditions, you're always trying to look for a laugh, or you always have to have the mindset of the glass half full. And so I think that persistent, the being persistent and the idea of never giving up was heavily pushed on me because of the circumstances. On the negative side, I think I did experience a little bit of mental issues. I saw things that I didn't want to see. I was a part of things that I didn't want to be a part of, but because I had to follow orders, I had to do it. And I think that also scarred me. So overall, I think it was a good and bad experience, but I would say it's mostly good. I physically, I'm 28, but I feel like I'm 50. I played volleyball on Sunday, and my knee hurts. I have a bad back. I suffer from migraines. So what I would say is, if anybody's interested in joining the military, look up your career. Make sure that your career aligns with something that you're going to do in the civilian world when you get out. And also weigh your options, because you physically, as you're going to go in, you're not going to be the same as you're going to come out. Whether you join airborne school, where you have to jump off of airplanes and open your parachute and you land, you're going to have bad knees, and those sorts of things. It just comes with the job. And I would say, think about it and weigh your options. And I think after the military, I was incredibly grateful for my experience. It definitely looks good on a resume. And overall, if you would ask me would I do it again, I would say yes. I would say yes, because it was just, the military takes care of you afterwards as well.
Mhm.
There's plenty of benefits out there. I went to college for free. I was able to purchase my house for zero down because of the VA loan program, and I got compensated for disability. So I think in that aspect, the military does take care of you because they know how hard it is on the job, on your body.
What was the reason then if you would do it again for not renewing your contract?
I family. My unit, because it was needs of the Army. It probably still is. Excuse me. Cut that. Because I was needs of the Army, we deployed a lot. I quickly found out why they were offering bonuses for the job because nobody wanted to do it. We typically deployed once a year. I mean, we typically deployed for 1 year, and we were home for a year. And so, with that in mind, after my deployment, I came back and I was with my wife, and we decided to have our first child, to start a family. And so my wife was pregnant at the time, and I was getting ready to, renew my contract. And at that point, I was a sergeant. I was in charge of soldiers, and I really loved my job, and I was thinking about staying, but the idea of having to deploy and not see my son for, if you do a year in, year out kind of deal, I wouldn't see him for half of his life. And so I had to weigh that in, and I said, you know what? I'm going to look up careers outside of the military. And I didn't Google, what's the highest paying job anymore. Um, I I started I wanted to be a part of something greater, and I wanted to do good. And so I started looking at jobs in healthcare administration. And I knew I was going to go to Arizona State University.
Go
Just
Devils.
because Go Devils, just go Sun Devils, just because they were, they have the Pat Tillman Veteran Center. They're very veteran friendly. And so I applied, and I got in, and I decided to pursue a bachelor's degree in health sciences, which taught me health policy, healthcare legislation, healthcare management. And so all of those ideas that would be needed for the career that I wanted to do.
So you did your bachelor's at ASU, and then is that all the education that you did? Like, is that all you
No, no,
studied?
no. Recently, I just graduated from ASU. Go Sun Devils! From from with a master's in business administration. So I graduated with their prestigious W.B. Carey School of Business.
Ooh,
Graduated from there, and it was just this year in 2025 in May I received my diploma.
that's awesome.
But when right after I got out of the military, I got my bachelor's degree within a year and a half because I had already, I had already come with the mindset, thinking, I'm here to get free college.
Yeah.
So while in the military, they offer tuition assistance, and there's certain colleges that all they need is that tuition assistance. They don't ask for anything else.
Mhm.
And so I went and did a lot of my prerequisites while I was still in the military. So when I got out, I only needed a year and a half worth of credits to earn a bachelor's degree.
Oh, wow.
And so I graduated really quick, and I started applying for jobs, and I decided to pursue a career in public health at the Arizona Department of Health Services, working. I managed 2 federal grants for the state, focused on hospital preparedness and workforce development. So for the hospital preparedness, I made sure that funds were going to particular organizations that ensured that hospitals were prepared in case of an emergency. I managed the objectives that were required by the grant. I ensured that funding was appropriated correctly, and that the organizations that we funded were meeting those objectives, and any training exercises that we needed to do. For the workforce development, I ensured that we had the right people, and we were funding the right areas in the state that needed more people.
That was after having graduate or having gotten your bachelor's, right?
Right after, yeah.
What did you do between the year and a half right after coming out of the military?
I did a lot, like I said, I decided to stick to my VA benefits. The military offers a GI Bill for anybody who finishes an active duty contract or anything like that. And that's just in simple terms, but after the military, I had the GI Bill available for me, and so I applied. And the really cool thing about the GI Bill is that they pay not only for your tuition, but they also pay for your housing. So I received a housing allowance, and I was working part-time with my father-in-law doing remodeling, and sometimes with my dad doing back to concrete and things like that. But I pushed through that year and a half just doing that.
Okay. So then you went to the Arizona Department of Health, helping with these, kind of helping with the, I guess, could you say like the organization of the distribution of these grants
Yes.
for the hospital preparedness and for the workforce development. And but how long were you there for?
I was there for about 2 years.
2 years. And then how was your experience there overall?
It was great. I met a lot of dedicated public health servants, because, one thing that can't be denied is that, there's the private sector and there's the public sector, and the public sector isn't very well compensated. And so there was people there that I met that had been there for years, and they just loved doing their job. They were so dedicated. They were great at what they did, and they made sure that the mission of making sure that Arizona's healthcare system was prepared in case of an emergency was accomplished no matter what happened, whether we lacked funding, whether we were short on people. They sometimes wore two hats. They did two jobs instead of one. I would say that they are one of the groups of people that are less paid in public health. So that was very important for me. That was a great experience.
And if any, what do you think the time in your service helped with that kind of job? Because that's really, like, from what you're describing with the people you worked, it's a really like serving, kind of like looking to serve the public, looking to
Yep.
serve the public sector and help the public sector.
Yeah, well, again, the 7 Army values, one of those values is selfless service. The other is honor, duty. So a lot of those values that I learned in the military translated directly to my leadership style in public health. And I knew that, that I had people that could help me in case I asked. I was never shy to ask for help, and I made sure that I dedicated myself to anything that had my name on it. So if I was going to be a part of something, I always want to give 100%, even to now. So if not, I would step aside and become a follower to somebody who's leading at 100% capacity, because I think that anything that you dedicate yourself to needs to be done with the full, first of all, with the full guidance of the Lord, and also with your dedication as well. That's also a reflection of what we believe here as Christians. So I wanted to be a part of that.
So then, trying to remember the timeline here. So then, were you baptized? Were you already in this role, or were you not yet?
So I started the job and I wasn't baptized.
Okay.
I think it was I think it was 2 months later. I started the job in February, so it was 1 month later. In March, I got baptized. So that is when I was, I decided to, continue my walk of faith with the Lord. And I think that helped me a lot. Once I came back, my family wasn't the same either. They had, I would say that they had been a little bit more lenient as far as birthdays, and as far as Christmases. We were able to exchange gifts and things like that. And we were able to have birthday cake. But
When you ate that birthday cake.
yeah, my relationship with them was, I had missed them. I think they visited me maybe once, and I visited them twice while I was in the military in 4 years.
Jeez.
So, I went and saw them, and like I said, it wasn't a broken relationship or anything like that. It was just more distant than I would have liked. So with them, I they attended my baptism here, and that meant a lot. I hugged my dad, and yeah, it was pretty great.
I've been trying to work with the timeline for like the past 5 minutes. So you were there for about 2 years. You said you got baptized in 2023 and you had just started that job. So we're in 2023 right now, right? But then you were still there for 2 years.
Oh, I'm
after-
sorry. I must have misspoke. So I started. Now I'm forgetting my timeline. I graduated in December 2021. In February 2022, I got hired by the Arizona Department of Health Services. In March of 2022, I got baptized.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that's 3 years,
You
right?
stayed there up until last year?
Yeah,
Okay. And
I
then
stayed there until July 2024.
okay.
And the reason for me leaving is because, again, I wanted to dip back into that GI Bill. I decided to go into I applied for the MBA program in ASU. I was still working there for 6 months, but it just was not working for me. I would, stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning doing homework. I remember I was just a zombie during the day, and I was just going through the motions, and it had just barely been 6 months. And also, I wanted to pursue something greater. I really enjoyed my time with the Arizona Department of Health Services, but one thing for state jobs is you don't have promotions. You have to apply for a different job in order to get promoted. And then also, so there was no room for professional growth, I would say. And another thing is they don't, the state budget, I think I'm getting too much into the weeds, but I'll just say this. The state budget is very tough here in Arizona. Um, for people that work in the state governments, and just the state government, it's different for counties and local departments, so I won't speak on that. But for the state government, the first year I was there, I got a raise. The second year, I didn't get a raise, and they froze hiring. They said that they were predicting that there wouldn't be raises for the near future and things like that. And during that time, there was heavy inflation. So I had also had to consider that in terms of me staying, which is why I was pushing for those 6 months to stay and do my job. But again, I wasn't fulfilling as much as I would want. Looking back in hindsight, it was just not healthy. So I decided to use my GI Bill and focus on school and prioritize the aspects of my health that I was just not paying attention to.
You didn't go back to construction.
I did not go back to construction.
No
No,
concrete.
no. I did not do that.
What did you do during that time then? Just live off of the GI Bill?
Yeah, it was a tight budget for us too. So in the house, I lived off of housing allowance and my disability. Luckily, I've always been good managing our finances. So before I made the decision to leave, I ensured that, we were able to be okay month to month. And so when I did like a 6 month overview of how we were going to pay, and then I went to a year, and then all the way until my program ended, I was able to come up with a plan on, how to budget and how to make sure that our bills were paid. If the kids needed anything, I made sure that was there. So I decided to just focus on school without affecting my family's finances.
Would you say that the MBA was necessary in order for you to have the job that you have right now, or was it just more of a personal thing to want to get the
A
master's?
little bit of both. I think when the idea of getting an MBA started when I was working in public health at the state. And I just realized that everybody that was my age had a master's. And except for one person, and he's doing great. So you don't really need a master's degree. But I wanted to elevate myself as far as competitiveness in the job market. Right now we're in a tough job market. And so with that, I decided to pursue that MBA. to looking forward in my 5-year plan. I wanted to, expand my horizon and expand my professional growth because I had already been in 2 years in the same job. And so when I decided to pursue that master's, it was not only to get a personal goal of like, I can do it, I can get a master's, a higher level degree, a graduate degree, but also, in order to provide for my family and be good, I have to be more competitive. And in order to be more competitive, the bachelor's degree, is the new high school degree. We are one of the most I think we are the most highly educated generations. So if you come in with a bachelor's degree, you will be competing with other people at your level. And so it's just based on experience. So I wanted to stand out by getting an MBA. So I decided to pursue my MBA. But when I first joined the NIH, um, it was 6 months before graduating. So it was in 2020, January 2025, I came on board.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was looking into it, I met the qualifications for everything, but I was under the impression that they were going to qualify me for a master's degree just because I was like, oh, it's 6 months away.
Yeah.
They did not. They said, you have to have that degree on hand in order for us to put you at a higher level.
Okay.
So yeah, that's another thing for the public sector. There are very stringent human resource policies in hiring. You have to meet the qualifications prior to applying for the job or at the time of the job offer. And that might be different in the private sector. You say, oh, you're graduating in 6 months. Yeah, why don't you join us? You get what I'm saying. So yeah, that was for me, that was something. But luckily with the NIH, I have that master's degree now. So I'm already in talks with my supervisor about potential expansion of my role in the organization.
So did you start already as a program analyst, or would you just recently moved into being a program analyst or promoted to being a program analyst?
Yeah, I started as a program analyst. The reason why I'm mentioning the levels is because for the federal government, there's a ranking system. It's called the general schedule. So you could be a general schedule 4, general schedule 5, general schedule, I think all the way up to 15. And when there's a particular job posting, they say we will be reviewing candidates that are general schedule level 7 through 12. And so when you apply, it's the same job, but you could be a different level. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And in order to jump a level higher than, let's say if it's 7 through 12, you have to apply to a different job, a higher job, a GS-13 job.
And can you describe a little bit what exactly you do as a program analyst?
Yeah, so I am a program analyst for the National Institutes of Health, particularly the pregnancy and perinatology branch. And so what we do is we focus on research, on funding research that is related to pregnant women and infants. So me as a program analyst, I ensure that we are keeping track of our budget as a branch, that we are keeping records of all of the research that is going out, how that research did, where the gaps are, and presenting my findings to the branch so they can make funding decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's highly focused on data analysis and data collection, but there is also a communication factor. There's also areas where you have to collaborate with team members in order to get to the answer, and I love it.
Sounds a lot like your previous job with the AZ department, along with the Army, then prepared you pretty much for the role that you're in right now. A lot of those same characteristics or the same job characteristics.
Yeah.
Would that be the right way?
Yes.
Prepared you.
Yeah. So the National Institutes of Health, particularly any federal job, like I said, you have to meet those qualifications. And I met those qualifications to the T because of my role in the military, because I was a maintenance operator and I managed the maintenance program of the military's, of the Patriot Missile System in my particular unit. Um, and so I had to deal with the supply chain. I had to manage Excel sheets. I had to manage personnel, make sure that they were working, and service schedules and things like that. So it's 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 clearly aligned to meeting the objectives of a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a program manager, I managed the grants. So again, I managed those objectives and ensured that funding was being correctly applied, and there were no issues with what was with the program that I was a part of. So joining the National Institutes of Health, a lot of those jobs, both uh, uh, technical and I forgot the word, but um, skills that aren't often seen, like leadership, those qualities, responsibility, and so all of those things. They prepared me for this job, which is incredibly important for the research of our particular focus groups.
Because everything has been so well coordinated where one thing has prepared you for the next and then that has prepared you for the next. I don't think in your case you would have at some point thought, um, I'm not going down the right path other than when you first started at NAU, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Because everything has been well correlated, or well connected, one job with the next and then that job with the next.
Mm-hmm.
Other than when you first went to NAU and realized this isn't for me, um, after that, it sounds like you're pretty much in the place where you want to be.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot that I want to do. When I was that in NAU, um, I reflect a lot on that time because especially now where times are tough, your dollar doesn't go as far as it is. And I remember just a few days ago thinking maybe I should have just stuck to electrical engineering. I would be making over $200,000 or something like that. But then I think about it and I'm like, would I be happy? Would I be as close to God as I am right now? Would I have even found salvation with perhaps the success of that type of career? And I just don't think I would change much. And don't get me wrong, I think, for example, anybody that's going into a career or anybody who's at that age where they're about to go to college and they're trying to choose a degree, that's incredibly stressful. But I would definitely say that it's okay to make mistakes. After I graduated with my bachelor's, I still wondered what I wanted to do. I did not know whether I wanted to work in the hospital, or I did not know if I wanted to work in healthcare organizations related to that, or a long-term healthcare facility, or maybe just a dental office. But ultimately, I think, just like you said, the military prepared me to provide public service, and I really enjoyed doing that. So I wanted to provide good in healthcare administration. So I thought to myself, which of these career paths would lead me to impact uh, as many people as possible. And so I think that's sort of one of the guiding principles for me whenever I look at my next move is I want to create an impact, if not for my community, for my state, if not for my state, for the nation. Um, and ultimately, I think it's led me to a good place. I'm still hungry for more because I still think that I'm starting out my career in healthcare administration. I think I've been in for maybe 2-3 years in direct healthcare administration roles. And one day I hope to be the director of a hospital or the director of a region of hospitals. That would be my ultimate goal. Right now I'm at the NIH, and who knows, maybe I'll be a federal government worker for the rest of my career. And I would definitely say, because of everything that I've gone through, I'm still very interested in that path because it's high impact. So yeah, that's something that I would like to touch on because I never knew what I was going to do up until I had found a job. And same thing with the NIH. I never knew, while I was going through school for my MBA, if I would get the job in the federal government. So I was open to so many things, but still with that guiding principle of how many people can I make the most impact for. So I think that was the reason why I decided to go with that career path. And I still look forward to whatever the future holds.
And how do you feel since you've gotten baptized that, your faith has kind of influenced your work?
I think that my faith is one of the biggest factors in any sort of decision making that I do. I first pray to the Lord about, what is going to be good for my family, to provide me with a, a, a word of assurance that I'm going towards the place that He wants me to go, because ultimately, He has a final say of what I'm going to do, um, and that's something that intertwined, that when I was in high school, that I would have never said that. I would say, which one gives me the most money and how can I be as successful as early as possible so I could retire at age 35. So I think that that's a big difference in what the Lord has given has shown me. I'll give you this example. Leaving the military was not a decision that I took lightly, just because it does offer stability. It offers everything for my family. They're taken care of and all of that. But I left in 2020, and that was during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So during COVID, a lot of the military, we were told to stay home. So the last 6 months of me in the military was just me staying home with my family, my wife, and enjoying that time of peace after deployments and being back in the United States. We had a lot going on, and then those 6 months were peaceful. I remember playing video games. I can't remember how long ago I've touched a video game controller. And during that time, there was just a lot of a lot of unknowns. Am I going to be able to make it in the civilian sector? Am I going to be able to find a job? Am I going to be able to provide for my family outside of here? And all of those questions were answered with a redundant yes as soon as I kept moving. As soon as I kept taking a step of faith with where the Lord wanted me to go. Because you have to remember that, just based on this story that I've given you my testimony, in the military, I wasn't walking with God. I was hosting parties. I was, I never went to church during that time. I think I went to church once during that 4-year span. And I think when that happened, when I was given those 6 months of sort of breathing room, it wasn't me who was saying you need to leave. It was the Lord saying you need to come closer to me. Come back to Arizona. And He aligned everything. He aligned. I applied, and I was leaving in July, and my school started in August. And I was able to, jump right back onto the career path that I wanted, that I looked for. And at that same time, when I came back to Arizona, as soon as I came back to Arizona, we started going to church, and it all worked accordingly. So I reflect on that, and I can't help but to say that I didn't make the choices. It was the Lord. I'm not saying that a pandemic happened because of me. I'm just saying that, He put all the pieces together, and He made me go where He wanted me to go.
You have a lot more questions here about the NIH. I don't know if you want to touch on any.
No, I actually have
Move on.
no, I have a different question, but it's kind of closer to the next, or we're gonna talk about related to
Just-
faith. Is that so now that you feel, now that you're baptized, now that you feel like you're closer to God, do you feel like if you were to go back in time as you are now, do you think you would have been able to stay close to God while in the military?
Um, you know, I met someone in the military who was incredibly devoted to God,
Mm-hmm.
and I made fun of him. Um, and I just remember how I would, just tell him, it's not that serious. Just be a good person. Um, do your job and just provide. So I guess that there was just that sense of individualism that I still held while in the military in that regard. Like I just need I can do everything with myself and with my own hands, and I don't need direction.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, as I am and knowing the importance of the good that comes from having a relationship with God, not only in your professional career but also in your family, I definitely do believe that I would be able to sustain a Christian faith in the military, and it would have helped me so much to avoid mental issues, to avoid any sort of pain that my past has caused. I think, like I said, it's better to be with God than without. 10 out of 10 times. So I think that feeling the way that I feel now about the importance of that, I would put that on my priorities as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Doing some research beforehand, I found a journal article that had some statistics about enlistment and religion. So it's a 2009 article though,
Mhm.
but I'd imagine maybe some of the trends are still visible today. I don't know if in your experience they might have changed, but what was found is that this group of young men, between the ages of grade 7 to 12, they were interviewed 3 times between 1994 up to 2002, so over a 7-year span. So they found that young men classified as highly religious evangelical were more likely to join the military compared to the highly religious non-evangelical. So still religious, just not evangelical. And they also found that the non-religious consistently exhibited a lower probability of enlistment compared to the highly religious evangelical. So there appears to be a lot of um, studies that haven't been performed. So there's a lack of data here between the correlation or with the correlation between enlistment and religion. But in your experience and from what you saw, is it common for the religious people, whether evangelical or non-evangelical, to enlist, or did you see more of the non-religious? Um,
Look,
in
um, what grade did you say they were? E7.
7 to 12.
So those are if you're talking about enlisted E7s to E12s.
No, grade 7s to 12.
Yeah. So I would say grade 7 through 12. It depends on what you're talking about, because if you're talking about grade E7 through E12, that's a rank.
No, like in school. So adolescence.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
follow the
Gotcha.
adolescence.
In school,
Yeah.
related. Sorry. So here's what I would say. I met a lot of people who believed in God, but there's a difference in having those highly religious views and actively participating. So I would say um, when one thing, when you are Christian, or when you are in if you believe in the Lord, I think it comes with the heart of needing to help. And in the military, we need those types of people. When based on my experience, like I said, there's a difference between believing in God, and it doesn't make you a bad person if you don't act on it. Don't get me wrong. But I would say that I wouldn't classify everybody who says that they are a believer of Jesus Christ and are, I don't know how else to say it, but are actively acting on the values of Christianity.
True disciples.
Exactly. So, for example, I think California and Texas are two of the states that provide the most enlisted soldiers. And Texas, I would say, is incredibly religious in Christianity. You know, and they have that Southern culture of helpfulness. So it doesn't shock me or it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people that come from there are Christian or have a sense of belonging to a Christian denomination. But the military's tough, you know. I don't swear, right? In the military, I never sweared. When I was a kid, I never sweared. But in the military, it's just a different language. It's a colorful language. And I would say that there's people that would say, I believe in God, and then turn around and say swear words because, you know, for example, somebody messed up, you know, and it comes with that. I had a drill sergeant in basic training who was religious, but drill sergeants are meant to be scary.
Yeah.
They're meant to hone you down and give you the knife hand. I don't know if that's legal anymore, but when I met him while I was going through basic training, he would cuss, but he hated it. I remember hearing that he's incredibly Christian and he hates cussing, but it comes with the job. And it's the same thing here, you know, in the military where, you know, not a lot of people have that sort of control, or they don't view it as bad to use a colorful language or things like that just because their emotions are high, you're highly stressed. It's a very stressful environment. And so I would say, to answer your question, I know I'm rambling, but if you're a Christian, I would highly encourage you to act in those Christian values despite being in those situations, because there needs to be that distinguishability of whether you're Christian or not. And in my experience, I didn't really see much other than maybe a couple people. Not to say that they didn't believe in God, but they just weren't acting on it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. You can see it in their actions.
No, you know, everybody was good. You know, it's good people. Everybody knew how to take care of their battle buddy, how to make sure that you were doing your part to move the mission forward. And whether or not you believed in God or not, it wasn't a distinguishable factor at least when I was in the military. Like, for example, I don't think I ever told anybody. Oh, actually, my dog tag says I was Christian.
Do you think that comes though with
But-
you being broken down to not be an individual anymore and then be part of that unit?
I think it comes with not only that, but it comes with the idea that you don't want to, unless you have a really close-knit group, like, for example, special forces. Special forces are known to be very close-knit and known to work together almost in unison, because it's a, you know, very, very difficult environment.
Yeah.
But in the general army, being Christian, they don't really, it's not something that comes up very often. In basic training, I'll close with this. In basic training, Sundays were for for religious. They held religious services, and multitude Catholic. What else? Catholic, Jewish, Christians, and there was different types of Christianity, right? Um, I joined. I went to basic training. I met a lot of people that went just to get away from the drill sergeants. They just wanted a few hours away. Uh, but there was a big group of people that went.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got out of basic training, I never ran into somebody who said, "Oh, I can't. I have church on Sunday," or things like that. And unfortunately, like I don't know how that translates, but it's just not something that I would say is highly emphasized. Maybe it's a personal matter.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read the Constitution of the church?
The Constitution of the church, I have not.
Okay. So, like any legal document, it's been altered many times, right? But up to last year, the Constitution had its actually I don't know. I just know I'm not sure exactly when it was added,
Mhm.
but up to last year there was a doctrinal point there specifically regarding military service. And so last year was eliminated and it was added into another part that was already there, being the church and state. So this is what the Constitution says. It further exhorts its members to affirm loyalty to their homeland by showcasing respect to the symbols that represent it and to respond voluntarily to the call of their government in times of peace or war and to render service, if possible, in all non-combatant capacities. So my question is this, and you already um, kind of answered it, but let's see if you can build on it a little more. Um, do you think it's possible to render service in the U.S. military while still being a devoted Christian?
Absolutely. It's like I said, joining service provides you with a lot of things, and there in the Bible, there's examples of soldiers like David. He was a soldier, a king that led from the front, and went to battle. Uh, so I think that that idea of serving the land that you are a part of, or holding in high regard the flag that flies up on our heads. I think that that's incredibly important for anybody to look at. Um, uh, I would not tell somebody or look down on them if we were to find out that somebody's going to the military and point them out and say, you can't join the military because you're Christian. That's completely opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be praying for them and hoping for their return, and hoping that they make a difference in the lives of people who haven't met God. Um, Especially because they're in more extreme and dire circumstances, or in an elevated way of losing their lives than any of us. So to say that military service and Christianity contradicts itself, I would say that that might be null and void, just because in previous times, perhaps it was the war in Vietnam, perhaps it was the Korean War, or perhaps most recently it's been the Middle East that we've been a part of. But all I know is that when I first joined, I didn't really do it thinking I'm Christian, I can't do this or anything like that. But I know my family did, and that affected me.
Right.
Leaving, as I was leaving, I said, am I really making them proud? When I know for a fact people who were up there declaring their oath to get enlisted, there was people all around them, and I was alone. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get how it would affect somebody. So what would make that person more comfortable. The fact that it's got the the backing of the church, that they're going to be able to serve their country, or the fact that they've just been pushed away.
Right. Now, I don't ask that because
Yeah.
I don't believe that
Sure.
you should separate them.
No, of course.
You can't join the military while being a Christian. I'm sure Eli's
Mhm.
on the same boat, but there is that common belief from a lot of people still that you can serve in the military or any law enforcement position while still being a devoted
You know,
Christian.
I just think that there's just this stigmatization or this false idea that everything in the army is about killing, and that's just absolutely not true. Like I said, I can't remember the statistics. I think it's 95%, but go look it up. And every time I say 95%, you put it at the bottom. But there's a large portion of non-combat jobs that are incredibly helpful for the government and are very needed because the Army at least has had a very bad recruiting problem with this generation. And you'll never see the field. You'll never see you'll never see combat. And it translates to the civilian sector. I always tell anybody who's asked me, "Hey, can you tell me about the military I'm thinking about joining?" One of my biggest points of emphasis is find a job where the techniques and skills that you learn will translate. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is incredibly important right now in the United States military with Russia and China's capabilities in cyber attacks. And if you were to join cybersecurity, military intelligence, those jobs are incredibly important back in the civilian sector. And you will be trained on that, get certified, and then in the civilian sector, you're good, you're golden. Nursing, dental assisting, those jobs are in the military. So it's difficult to tell somebody that that thinks that everything in the military is about war when it really is not. It's about, it's all about taking care of people, pursuing that goal that you're assigned to do, and moving forward. And that's the final point that I want to mention, because I've met a lot of people who sort of guilt trip people out of not going because of the uncertainty. But in reality, what's to stop them from going into a field that can have the same effects, like, for example, working at a bank. I hope Wells Fargo isn't watching. I hope they don't sue me. But Wells Fargo has been known to discriminate against Hispanics. So if a Hispanic person goes to apply to Wells Fargo, does that mean that they're bad? You get what I'm saying? So in the military, it's the same thing. In the military, you go and apply for a job and you do it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with everything that's going on. And that's incredibly related to what's going on right now in different states, not to get too political.
You think that same thing applies to law enforcement jobs?
Yeah. Why would so we have military police. What's the difference between a person that's military police and regular police? Because military police just enforce the laws that are on the federal government's basis. So, for example, right now, weed is not legal in the federal government. If you go to a base and they find you with weed, they will give you a drug charge. But in a lot of states, it's not. So a person here, and again, I'm not trying to make the case for what job is better and what job is not. What I'm saying is that there's a different area of misunderstanding when it comes to the military, and a stigmatization that everything in the military is wrong, when in reality, for example, if you're smoking, if somebody is carrying weed, a lot of people a lot of police here in the States, they let you go, but in the military you can't. So I just think that that's just a thought to carry on whenever you meet somebody that's in the military and ask, you know, what job they did. I guarantee you most of them are not infantry.
And when it comes, I mean, you can mention a little bit about the kind of this new generation, whether you can apply this question whether you want to talk about the military, just public health, since that's what you're working with right now. What do you think, um, for the youth that are listening to this podcast, what do you think really, I guess, this generation needs to improve on?
No, I think this generation has it hard.
Mhm.
I don't consider myself very judgmental of this generation. And the generation that precedes me. You know, I'm a millennial for generation Gen Zers and Gen Alpha. I think that they have it incredibly hard. Improvements. I would say, you know, focus on the Lord. Like anything, everything that you do, just pray on it and ensure that it's according to what the Lord has planned for you and the teachings of the Lord. But I would rather than giving you or accusing this generation of not doing enough, I would say keep holding on. Keep holding on to that faith because it will be important. I see a lot, especially from this church, we have a lot of youth, and I see a lot of them push hard for, you know, continuing to attend every single service that we have, including the extracurricular services and all of that. And in my generation, the millennial generation, we did not want anything to do with another church service or anything. At least in my church, I was one of the one of the people who would want to look for God, and I was scrutinized by church members, you know. So rather than saying, you know, what can this generation improve on, is I would say for earlier generations, be easy on them. You know, um, these generations can't find a house. It's hard to get jobs.
Yeah.
It's hard to afford living on minimum wage, and I've seen a lot of people graduate from a bachelor's degree. Like I said, it's very competitive, and have to move back with their parents. And it's hard to start families because of everything that they're doing. Um, you know, sometimes they can't afford having children, and you know, because we want this new generation to carry the weight of having children or thinking that families need to expand, we don't validate them and say, you guys have it hard. We just say, hey, just do it. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that they need our support. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think they need our encouragement. They need our words of advice to continue the path that they're going.
It's an interesting take. We haven't had that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a good pause to it.
Yeah.
I hope so. You guys are running out of time.
Oh, we're almost done. Just to
I'm just kidding.
close then, because we are gonna have some people coming in through
Sure.
these doors. Sure. Shortly. What's a Bible verse or a quote or a motto that keeps you focused so much in your faith as in your career, in your family, looking forward to life, holding on to your faith, but also holding on to your plans?
Yeah, a Bible verse. When I was younger, I would always say the same Bible verse, and I'm going to say it again right now because it 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 guided me towards forgiving, and it guided me towards being more united with my family and sharing those connections with other people. And it's el Salmo 133, mirad cuán bueno y cuán delicioso es habitar los hermanos juntos en armonía.
Mm.
And that really is it was one of the areas where I was like, I carried this through childhood and I didn't really pay attention to it, but it's beautiful to see people come around here and know that you are welcomed, and it's hard to find that outside anywhere. And it's important. It's not only beautiful, but it's important for us to be united, to have a united front, to have united beliefs. And that goes with family as well. So my family is, all of them are baptized. My sisters and I think my little brother, but he's 11. Hopefully, you know, he makes the decision when he's ready. But I think that whenever we get together, we enjoy a lot of our company because we share the same belief and we don't have any issues that affect us anymore. Does that make sense? Whereas when I was a non-believer or where I was questioning my faith, I would be the one who would create that heat, that tension. But now that I'm there, I'm really enjoying my time with not only my parents, but my wife's family, who's also baptized and things like that. And I encourage everybody to act on that. Act on that and reach out for your friends that are not believers and bring them so they could see how beautiful and great it is for all of us to come together and praise the Lord.
Very well said.
That's awesome.
You're gonna have some exposure.
What do you mean? Why?
If anybody wants to reach out
Oh,
in order to have that sort of guidance, especially with the military experience, with the public public health service experience,
Also, just like with the masters and everything that you studied as
Yep.
well.
yeah. What? How might they be able to reach you?
if they want me to help them career-wise, I would or give them career advice. I would say reach out to me via email at edwinabaraza@gmail.com. That's BARRAZA@gmail.com, and I'll be able to help you, give you guidance the best I can. Also on social media, I'm just found under Edwin Aranda Baraza on Facebook and Instagram. I don't have a TikTok.
Dang.
I don't have a TikTok.
Next.
No. But just look up my name and I'll be there, and
You can do story times.
You could.
story time.
Little story times.
Yeah, and that's about it.
Very well. You heard it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us in this episode, for hearing about Edwin's testimony and his walk through the military and through school, and now where he's currently at, working in public health, and also how he, was able to meet Christ and get baptized.
Yep.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Edwin. I enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, I really did too.
Yeah, you smiled a bit.
He did, so he actually got on the smile.
So-
Very few people are able to do that. Well, thanks again. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, put the little bell notification so you can be updated whenever we do post an episode. Well, this was the Post Good Podcast. We'll see you next time.
God bless you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you, Edwin.
All right, yeah.